Two. On today's show, what does PJ Washington need to show the Dallas Mavericks next season? I'll tell you what it is. And should he be guaranteed a starting spot? On today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
We have Kyrie.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great, Rusty.
Your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Amazing.
Your team every day.
Still can't eat milk.
And welcome. You're locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show, making Locked On Mavs your first listen today. The best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day on any podcast platform. Take us with you wherever you go. Leave a 5-star review on that podcast platform. Like the video on YouTube and comment anything below. Let me know in the comment section what's one thing PJ Washington needs to show you next season. You can also comment on Spotify now. I don't know if you knew that. You can comment on Spotify podcast episodes.
I saw that today because I had it in my I was listening to a podcast. My pocket was open and I opened it. I looked at my phone and I was leaving a comment. But I was like, what is this?
So whether you butt dial a comment like Slightly does or actually do it intentionally, go comment on Spotify and on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a free 3-week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from NFL from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. I'll tell you how to do that a little bit later. And joining me, you heard the voice, the sultry voice from the great Slightly Biased YouTube channel. What you got for me, Slightly Biased?
Who in the new intro song? Who is that says Mavs in 7?
Charles Barkley.
Oh, for some reason I hear it and it sounds like Future, and I'm like,
yeah,
it's not, but his new single.
It's his new call sign.
Mavs in 7. Oh,
Mavs
wow,
in
Future.
7.
Didn't know you were a Mavs fan.
Yeah. Today, we're going to talk about PJ Washington. We have not talked about him a lot because of all the Clay Thompson, all the new guys coming in, about Luka and Kyrie. We've talked a lot about those guys, but PJ is still kind of new on this Mavericks team. So I want to talk about, should he be guaranteed his spot to start next year? Could there ever be a case that we could make for somebody else? We'll also talk about what surprised us the most about PJ Washington last season. What's the next step for him? But let's start here slightly. What's the biggest thing the Dallas Mavericks need from PJ Washington next season? And I'm going to start with something that I've been kind of harping on that has to do with Klay and Kyrie and Luka and Lively and like Gafford and all that. He's going to be the most open Maverick next season in that starting lineup because of all the attention on Luka and Kyrie and on Lively with the vertical gravity and all that kind of stuff. And to me, I think PJ Washington, the thing that they need from him most, he shot 31.4% from 3 in the regular season. We were concerned about his shot. We were concerned about him, especially from the corners. He was not great in the corners last season. It was wild during the playoffs when the announcers would go, PJ Washington from the corner, 3, that's what he does. And you're like, it's not really what he does at all.
That's what he does.
What they need him to do is to knock down open shots and to take advantage of the worst defenders because he's going to be given the worst defenders.
Yeah, I mean, he shot 23% from 3 from the corner in Dallas, which is actually funny because when that trade happened, I remember looking at the numbers and he was 26% from 3 from the corner in Charlotte. And a big thing that was being talked about that I myself said, I'm sure we said it together on the show, was
Sure.
like, I mean, with the threes he's going to get in Dallas, like with Luka, like that number is going to be way higher. And it actually got worse in the regular season, but then the playoffs came around and he completely flipped it over, and he did kind of turn into a pretty good corner 3-point shooter. And I think a lot of that was because we saw defenses, more specifically the Oklahoma City Thunder, pretty much say, all right, PJ, you want to shoot corner 3? Do it. Like that is this shot that we're going to give up. We're going to overload. We're going to help on Kyrie Irving. We're going to double team Kyrie Irving. We're going to get the ball out of his hands. We're going to put our best defender on Luka, and then we're going to help. Like, we're going to bring help. We're going to show help. We're going to pinch in off the corners. And PJ Washington was a beneficiary of that, and he went crazy in that series. So, yeah, I think it's definitely him making corner threes, and really, like you said, open threes, but that's going to be a lot of corner threes, is going to be a very big thing for PJ Washington this upcoming season.
PJ also, it was not just the playoffs either. He had a couple games in the regular season. I started to go back through his game logs, and I was like, man, that PJ Washington in the playoffs, I wanted to ask, one of the questions I was going to ask was like, is that PJ closer to the PJ that we could get, or is it more of the PJ that misses a bunch of shots? But he had a 32-point game against the Warriors that the Mavs won, where he hit 5 threes. He had a 19-point game against the Hawks, and a 20-point game against the Warriors right before that. Like, those were all in a row. He had another 20-point game against the Pacers where he hit 4 threes, 23-point game against the Raptors where he hit 5 threes. Like, when he starts knocking them down, he can really start taking advantage of some of those defenders, like you said. And I think him adjusting his shot, that's been one of the that's been kind of the only story about PJ Washington this summer so far, is that he's been adjusting his shot with the Mavericks. I think that's going to help him out a lot. Remember what Josh Green kind of went through with the Mavericks, where they had to adjust his shot a little bit, and he became a really solid shooter for the Mavericks, and was really great shooting the ball, and was one of the only good like 3-point shooters during the whole run of the playoffs until they traded him. And so I think PJ, maybe the biggest thing they need from him next season is for him to work on his shot in the offseason and to adjust it and to make sure that he's ready coming into it. Because like you said, those corner shots are better for him with the Mavericks. Like, those shots are more open. He's got to knock them down because that's super important for him, or else he could lose that spot.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned it, and I went back and I just looked right now because I remember at the end of the season it was trending upward, and we were like, all right, PJ's kind of figuring out his shot. He had an 8-game stretch where he shot 18% from 3 on 5 attempts a game, so just a horrible shooting slump. But then over the last 11 games of the season, that was 39% from 3 to close things out. Just sort of started to find his groove, and then of course in the playoffs didn't hit, like, his percentage over the course of the whole playoffs wasn't as good as I thought it would be, 34%. But it really was that Thunder series where he was just being spoon-fed wide open threes and ended up shooting, I'm pulling it up right now, 46% from 3 in that series. So, that's not what I'm expecting, but if we can just get, mid to upper 30s and close to 40% on open threes and in corner threes, then it's going to be a very difficult offense to stop.
Which one aside here real quick on the PJ Washington, his 46% shooting in the Thunder series. That's been the biggest complaint about Thunder fans is, well, if PJ Washington didn't turn into Ray Allen for 2 months, and he won't do that again, so we'll beat him next year. Okay, what if they just add Clay Thompson, who is literally like Boston Celtics Ray Allen right now?
Yeah.
Like end of Boston Celtics career, Ray Allen. What if they just added him, and then all of a sudden he's taking those shots? So that's my one thought on that. That's what we...
I hate this argument from I have a Thunder fan friend in my life who, like, anytime we have this argument, he brings it up, and it's like, y'all, like, he's an NBA player wide open from 3 every time he touches the basketball.
Design.
Like, that was the strategy you guys went with because there was no other options really defensively. That means the Mavericks are better than you.
Just mad an NBA player made wide open shots.
I know, it's the craziest. It's like one of the weirdest things I see on Twitter.
Anything else they need from him offensively? Because we've kind of been focused on offense. I think a couple of things we saw in the Thunder series, and then even in some others, is if he's going to get guarded by, like, let's say they're playing the Timberwolves, he's guarded by Mike Conley because they have to throw everybody else. They have to throw Jaden McDaniels on Luka and Anthony Edwards on Kyrie, and then you have to throw, whoever else on Klay. If he's getting guarded by them, he's got to take advantage of those guys and post him up and do a couple other things. And I think we may see a little bit more versatility out of PJ Washington's game than him just being a straight up corner 3 shooter and nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, that's we saw that a lot in the Thunder series as well. Him posting up Shea, like you said. Yeah, definitely. I think that there's a pathway for PJ. We did this when we had that who would be the third best player for the Mavs. And there is a pathway for PJ to get to like 15, 16, 17 points a game. And he's doing it in a bunch of different ways that it becomes this very interesting wrinkle for the Mavericks this upcoming season. Like, not only making threes, but then attacking closeouts. And he has that floater that he goes to that's pretty, reliable when he gets to it. And it's, I would like to see a bit of a usage uptick for PJ. I just don't know if it's really possible with Klay here and Kyrie and Luka. So, I mean, we'll see. I mean, for a fourth option, though, you could do way worse than a guy who's like dropped 30 points before, 40 points before.
Yeah, right. And he's one of the things for him is maybe the biggest thing they need from him is consistency in some of these things. Shooting the ball consistently, attacking consistently, doing those things they need because his opportunities are going to be inconsistent, but he has to be consistent with the opportunities that he gets as that 5th guy because he was kind of like the 3rd guy towards the end of the season. It would be Luka, Kyrie, maybe the lob threats, but then him as another option because Derrick Jones Jr. wasn't getting a lot of run with the ball, but PJ got, definitely got some opportunities. So we'll see what happens with PJ Washington as far as what they need from him. I think he can deliver on some of those things, but let's talk about what we saw from him last season. Let's talk about if he should be the guaranteed starter next season. I'm curious what you think about that. So we'll talk about all that and more coming up.
You don't believe you shouldn't be here.
Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience. It's the formula for winning championships. The Mavericks think that they can learn that formula, and eBay Motors, they already have it because they have everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance with superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million different parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for, and with that eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the Luka Doncic MVP in 2024-2025 season and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
Dirk, don't interrupt. Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, listening every day. Appreciate each and every one of you for checking out the show. Make your second listen today, Locked On NBA. Pat, the designer, and I, on Thursday, we talked about who can catch the Boston Celtics. We talked briefly about the Mavericks and if they can catch the Celtics, but we talked a lot about we don't think anybody in the East can catch the Celtics. So let us know what you think about that. Go listen to Locked On NBA. Make it your second listen on wherever you're listening or watching this show. All right, Slightly. We're talking about PJ Washington. Talking about the biggest thing that he needs, that the Mavericks need from him next season. We talked a lot about offense and focused a lot about offense. But to me, I think maybe the biggest thing that they need from him is defensively, because there's going to be a lot asked on PJ Washington defensively. He is going to need to guard the best wing-ish player on the other team, and sometimes even the point of attack guy. And I think there's going to be a lot of stuff asked of PJ Washington next season, and that's going to be a big thing for him to carry.
That's honestly what I was going to say would be the most important thing for PJ would be the defensive side of things, especially with Derrick Jones Jr. out of the mix now. But, I'm remembering back on, obviously we missed Derrick Jones Jr. and stuff, but this has been brought up by other people. And it is true that, you go back and you look at the numbers and it's not like the Mavs were this elite defense all season long. It's not like they were this elite defense when Derrick Jones Jr. was on the court versus when he was off. In fact, before the trade, there was like really no difference in the Mavs defensive rating when Derrick Jones Jr. was on the court versus when he was off. It wasn't until PJ Washington joined the fold where those two combined to have this just formidable, forward duo defensively. And when those two were on the court together, it was a 103 defensive rating. When Derrick Jones Jr. was on the court without PJ, it was a 118 defensive rating, which is not good. I mean, it's a huge drop off. And to be fair, when PJ was on the court without Derrick Jones Jr., it was 115. So it's not like it was very good either. But, the Mavs defense after they traded for PJ Washington was 5 points per 100 possessions better when he was on the court. So defensively, it's going to be big. I mean, that would be my number one thing is that defensively, he's going to have to be, I think in theory, you want Lively to be your best defender, but you want PJ to be the guy who, hey, we're playing the Timberwolves tonight, PJ, you got Ant. Hey, we're playing the Thunder tonight, PJ, you got Shea. Playing the Lakers, you got LeBron. I mean, it's tough, but somebody's got to do it. And remember, the first game against the Thunder, PJ picked up Shea. I remember it was like one of the things I was like, whoa, all right, this is what we're doing. So we'll see. I mean, it's the most important thing, I think, for PJ this year.
I think you're probably right. I focus a lot on offense, and I've been focusing a lot on offense this offseason because it's the thing that needed to improve. The Mavs needed to get better offensively. They were already good defensively, but you also can't lose ground defensively if you're the Mavericks, because that was a strength for you last year. And it was a strength because, like you said, PJ Washington was added to the fold. They had the 48 minutes of Gafford and Lively at center that they could rely on for rebounding and rim protection and little switching and all that. But you're probably right that the biggest thing that's going to be asked of him is you got to defend at an elite level. You've got to own your position and own your spot and own whoever you're guarding in front of you, and make it so that we don't have to cover up for you, because we're already probably covering up for Luka at times in the regular season, Kyrie at times in the regular season, and probably Klay at times in the regular season too in that starting lineup, because he's going to be 34 or he's going to be 35 in February. And so you don't want to put too big of a burden on him before you get to the playoffs where you're going to need his shot making a lot. But there is going to be a lot asked of PJ Washington defensively. He is the only dirty work wing in that starting lineup now.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure they'll get creative with the lineups. So you'll see lineups with Najee and PJ, Quentin Grimes maybe and PJ. But yeah, in the starting, at least the projected starting five, yes, it's going to be tall task for him and for, I'm assuming, Lively.
That's what I assume too. Tomorrow we're going to talk about Gafford and if there's any case to be made for Gafford to still be the starter like he was last season. But yeah, I agree that I think it's going to be Lively too. Was there anything that last season that surprised you about PJ Washington coming in? Because we all kind of had our opinions about him, and then we got to see him for 29 games the regular season, got to see him for, 22 games, almost double that. He almost played as many playoff games as he played regular season games for the Mavericks. 22 games in the playoffs. Anything that surprised you about him?
It's crazy how long deep playoff runs go. Like I was thinking about that a few weeks ago. It's just like 2 full months longer than if you didn't make the playoffs. Like so much time.
2 months.
You called them earlier a dirty work wing. And that's like, that is surprising because we didn't have much to go off of. Like he played for the Hornets. I went back after the trade, I think even before the trade, and watched a bunch of Hornets tape and him on the Hornets. And it's very difficult in situations like that to really try and like figure out how a player is going to fit in to a winning environment. And I'm not trying to like, I'm anyone who follows my channel knows I'm in on the Hornets. I think they're a talented roster. I think they're going to be much better than people think. I think they're like a sneaky 6-7 seed in the East this upcoming season. And they were the play-in with PJ, so it's not like they were horrible the entire time, but it was just a different environment, right? Like the Mavs were contending for titles. Like that's what they wanted to do this upcoming season. So to go from that to the Mavs, you didn't really know what to expect. What's going to translate? What's not going to translate? Is he going to be okay with maybe a lesser role? Is he going to be okay with coming off the bench? Is he going to be okay with X, Y, and Z? And it was the dirty work. Like I just didn't expect him to be that much of a dog. He wasn't afraid of any moment. The playoffs come around, he's ready immediately. The Clippers series, he's talking trash. He's doing the standing on business pose immediately. Like he was ready for it. And that's what you want to see.
That was the thing I was going to bring up is the thing that surprised me most about PJ Washington last season was the standing on business moment against the Clippers in that playoff series, because he had not been in the playoffs at all. He had been destroyed in the play-in game a couple years in a row with the Hornets, like just did not even show up. Basically, they didn't. And then you go into a playoff series where he is the one that's, I am the dog. I am the one that will stand up. I am the guy that will stand up, the enforcer that will do the, standing on business thing in front of the Clippers bench he was ready for all the smoke. And usually a player like that comes in and expects to play this big role and expects to come in and playing for his hometown team and all that stuff, all the expectations that are on him. Usually you're like, all right, the moment's too big for you. It was kind of that way for Grant Williams, where you're like, okay, he was going to come in and be that guy. And then just the moment was too big for him at a certain point in the regular season, even though he had played in the playoffs before him, had big moments in the finals and all that. But PJ came in and was ready for it and showed up in big moments in the Thunder series that we talked about. I mean, so many different times, but the standing on business moment was just sort of embodied his mentality through the playoffs. And that surprised me about him because I did not expect him to come in with that.
Yeah. I mean, those are the players you want, is the fearless sort of, I'm unfazed by any moment players. Cause we talk about the Mavs need to do this. The reality is the Mavs are trying to win championships. Like we're beyond the building phase. We're beyond anything else. It is go time right now. We're trying to win championships, and you need guys like PJ Washington. Like the Josh Green thing, we were waiting. And there was just plenty of moments where it's like, he is just, God bless him, he's such a confidence driven player. He is just not going to be reliable in these type of settings. Enough. He just probably will never be, right? Or at least in you're right, reliable enough, like for what the Mavericks are going to need out of him. Where PJ steps in and is just like, yep, you guys need me to be the second leading scorer in an entire series against the number 1 seed. All right, I'll do it.
You need me to score 29 points in a game? Got it.
Yeah.
Boom. 7
wait, Luka, you're passing it to me in the corner in game 6 in the closing seconds to potentially win the game. All right, and then I'll knock down the free throws. Like just fearless. Even
his game 2 against the Clippers on the road. I mean, it's not a crazy environment. By the way, the difference between the Clippers away, I was at all the games. The difference between the Clippers environment and the Thunder environment was so different. But even for him in game 2 against the Clippers, come out with 18 points, a couple of rebounds, a couple of blocks, like just to show up in that big moment. That did surprise me about PJ.
And that was such an ugly game. And that was like the first half of that game, the Mavs were in trouble. Like they lose that game, they're down 2-0. And it's just like, what just happened? That was a gut check moment, I think, for everybody on the team. But PJ too, 18 points.
Yeah, they go down 0-2, and then all of a sudden it's the same as like, what was it, 2021, where just the road team won?
Yeah.
2021
series.
It could have been like that, where you take it to a game 7, and then all of a sudden, I mean, you never know what can happen. Wild.
Seriously.
So PJ changed the course of the Mavericks in several different ways. Great move by Nico Harrison. Coming up, should PJ Washington be guaranteed the 5th starter, though? Should it be a given? Because we've already written him in. Can anyone else make a case? Talk about that coming up.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds and things that you can use to get in on the action and hear about sports. Talk about sports. You've heard us talk about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We have something a little different for you. Now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5, just $5. It's what a footlong used to cost at Subway. Get 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. You know how expensive NFL Sunday Ticket is if any of you football fans have been looking at it. I mean, it is insane. I saw somebody say it was like $700 for the season for you to watch other teams. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is Google account, current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. And if you bet $5, you get a free 3-week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Check it out at FanDuel.com/lockedon.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
All right, Slightly, we're spending our day talking about PJ Washington because he was great at times last year and was exactly what the Mavericks need. And he's came in and fit exactly the role they needed. He was a dirty work wing. He was the dog when they needed him in that Clippers series to come back and win that game too. He was great in the Thunder series to carry them over the top and to beat them. But now we've got Clay Thompson on the Mavericks. Luka and Kyrie are guaranteed to start. Whether it's Gafford or Lively, one of them has to start. Should PJ Washington be guaranteed that 5th starter? Could Najee Marshall, could anyone else make a case?
I don't think anyone should be guaranteed a starting spot. I think even Luka has to earn it. That would be me if I was the coach. No, that's not how it works, obviously. Luka,
I'm just the coach.
Luka could show up 350 pounds, like, I haven't touched a basketball all summer. And he'd be like, all right, Luka, you're a funny guy. Get out there.
40 in practice.
All right, I guess we'll have to play 44 minutes a game to start the season to get you into shape. But I don't know. I just don't know size-wise who else would make sense with that grouping. You know, that's kind of where I'm at. Where, like, it would have to be Maxey.
Najee Marshall and PJ are both listed at 6'7". I mean, I think they are pretty similar.
PJ plays bigger though.
He does.
At least to my eyeballs. Like I honestly, Najee Marshall being 6'7" is a little surprising to me. Actually, he plays a little bit more small. Like I think Najee Marshall. I think 3. You know, I think PJ Washington. I think obviously it's positionless basketball, but I think 4, small ball 5, even potentially. I think it's just because PJ Washington is just broader. He's just like a bigger body.
And I think that's true. I think PJ Washington should be getting that 5th spot. He's there. He's played 5 a little bit more, and I think that's why like he plays bigger. And so in Charlotte, they actually used him as a 5 a lot. And so I think that's where you're seeing that. Could Najee Marshall make a case? Maybe at a certain point. If Omax had done anything in the summer league, maybe we would talk about him making some kind of case. But to me, I don't think there's anyone else. This is why I saved this question towards the end. Is like Maxey is probably, like you said, is maybe the other one that's making some kind of a case. But I mean, he looked rough through the playoffs. So they need to save him a little. But PJ, he's just too versatile. He does too much. He's not afraid. For all those reasons, I think he's going to be that 5th starter, and I don't think that you can change that.
I think I actually would say if I had to just make a bet and bet my life savings, like Luka, Kyrie, and PJ would be like those are the 3 I'm super confident of starting, like almost 100% confident.
Well, Shams already reported that Clay's coming in to start, so
I know, but I'm saying like by January, if it's like, hey, Najee Marshall's been insane, and the Mavs are plugging him into the starting 5, and Clay's coming off the bench, or Quentin Grimes is going crazy, and the Mavs like him, and now Clay's coming off the bench, but it's all cool and amicable. Like Clay kind of wants it. That's me manifesting that if that does happen. It's not like a problem.
Hey, you know what?
Still can't leave me open.
That's true. Clay suggested it. He wants to play more off the bench.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it would have to be Kyrie sat down and talked to him, and Markieff Morris is back, and he talked to him. And
did you talk? Oh, you talked about that. I saw you talked about that stuff. The Kyrie quotes or the kid quotes on Kyrie?
Yeah, well, we can spend a minute on him though. But yeah, Kyrie was big in the. I mean, we knew that when Klay came in that he was big in the recruiting of Clay Thompson. But hearing Kid the other day talk about how Kyrie shared about his experience with Dallas, and that really spoke to Clay Thompson, was just like, what is this team and this franchise now? So different than what it was even a couple years ago, where you were just, I mean, the Mavs had all the money in the world and were begging players to come and join them. I mean, it's completely different when you put the right people in place. And shout out to Cuban for putting Nico and Jason Kidd in those positions of power and have changed everything.
It's funny because every now and then I'll get like a comment notification, like a video I did before the Kyrie Irving trade when it was being rumored, and I was like, is my mic still sound fine? I just kicked the cord accidentally.
I can still hear you.
I was like, please go get Kyrie Irving. And one of the things was like, regardless of your opinions on Kyrie Irving, the fact of the matter is, players in the NBA love him. They adore him. He's one of the most popular players. He has one of the highest approval ratings. Like, everyone respects his game. And it's like, for some reason, when I think of Kyrie Irving, he's always just like this mid-20-year-old who is just like, playing with LeBron. But he's like he's 32 now. Like, he's been around for such a long time. Well, I mean, he is. What's that funny meme? Like, the 33 years old, it's a miracle he's still doing all of this. I mean, he's been in the league God, it's crazy. He's been in the league as long as he has been. But
was it 2012?
2011, 2012, yeah.
Man.
I mean, that's just insane. But yeah, just having a guy who's like in very different situations, but Kyrie being like, I was a castaway for separate reasons, obviously, and the Mavs kind of took a chance on me and have welcomed me with open arms, and it's been great. Klay, castaway's harsh, but that situation was obviously, on rocky waters in Golden State. And Kyrie, I'm sure, was just like, hey, Dallas will welcome you with open arms, and you'll shoot 6 wide open corner threes a game.
Take less to come play with the Mavericks. He got more years, I think, but I think he still took less. He definitely took less from the Lakers, but took less from the Warriors too, and came to the Mavericks. And I think that is amazing. I think part of it is the Mavericks have set roles for everybody, and everybody kind of falls into place. I think that's one of the reasons why it worked so well for them last year. And a guy like PJ is perfect for that. He fits right into a role, and so he also like Klay's role isn't going to infringe on PJ's role at all, or Kyrie, or Luka's at all, or the centers, obviously, but like, you can fit a guy like Klay right in because of the versatility of a guy like PJ and the falling in lineness of the Mavericks, right? Where everybody is just falling into whatever their role is supposed to be.
I mean, you can give Luka all the grief you want for being a high usage player, but that's one of the benefits of having an offensive engine. It's like, hey, that's our guy. You're not going to come in here and you're not going to come in here and threaten Luka to become the guy.
You can't make a case to us that you having the ball in your hand is going to be more efficient than him having the ball in his hand.
I was like, Jokic could join the Mavericks, and I'd be like, I don't know. I feel like Jokic setting screens.
You know what Jokic would also say? Sure. And Jokic would just pass it real quick. I mean, the ball is not sticking in his hands at all.
No. But that's a great point, though, is like the just everyone knows their roles, and PJ is like a very versatile player as well. Like that, I don't think we even saw really PJ play the 5 in any real significant
not
way
enough
for the Mavs. And I think that's maybe something that they could tap into a little bit more this upcoming season. I'm sure they will.
If you had to do a PJ at the 5 lineup, which one do you want to see the most?
So that anytime I think about the Klay dilemma, air quotes, the PJ at the 5 becomes like the sexy alternative where it's Luka, Kyrie, Klay, and then you could throw in a Najee, or maybe even a Quentin Grimes, but then somebody would have to be playing up, and then PJ at the 5. Or you could go Klay or Kyrie on the bench, like just not a closing lineup, obviously, but like cycle out one of the ball handlers and then have Grimes, Najee, and PJ out there at any given time. And it's like, this is our defense lineup.
Yeah, we need to make a bunch of stops on the perimeter. It's the Boston Celtics go with Porzingis at the 5, and you're like, all right, let's throw PJ on Porzingis, and then now we actually do have guys that can defend all those other perimeter players. We can still score and actually stretch the floor. Maybe they'll go PJ at the 5 and Maxey playing a more of a 4 role.
Yeah, maybe.
And
they might wrap Maxey in bubble wrap. It might be like a. It
Break
just might be
in
like
case of emergency.
Yeah, just like, we want you in the playoffs. Like, let's get you there in one piece.
Wrap him up. Just wrap him up, and I think a lot of Mavs fans would be okay with that.
Yeah, I don't. Maxey scares me anytime he's on the court because of how injured he gets.
But his defense was still good last year a lot of the times, and I think they could still use him. They could still use his versatility. Let us know in the comment section on YouTube and on Spotify, and also follow us on Instagram at Locked On Mavs. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On Mavs. Let us know in either of those places what you think about PJ Washington. What's the biggest thing they're going to ask of him next year? You can also subscribe to be a Locked On Mavs insider to get text alerts from me on Mavs stuff all the time. So text the link in the description, text the number in the description, or click on the link in the description. And tomorrow we'll be talking about Daniel Gafford. Me and Slightly will be here talking about Daniel Gafford and what he needs to do for the Mavericks next season. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.